Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for tuning in to Just Bleed Radio. Today is Sunday, the 1st of June, 2025, and this is the Weekend Roundup. Well, after a week free from the UFC, we're back at the Apex in the gambler city of Las Vegas. I don't know about you guys, but here on Just Bleed Radio, we're just glad to have some fights to talk about. The question is, what would this UFC card deal us? Would it be Alan Alda, or would they drop the hammer and give us the whip? And I don't know right now because, as usual, I'm sat here at 2 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon, writing an intro and waiting for the UFC to shuffle up and deal. But it's Sunday now, so time for me to get the cards in the air and introduce my co-hosts. Sat in the small blind, our cauliflower-eared exterminator of things that go eek in the night. Is he holding the dog balls or maybe the most feared hand in Hold'em? In a regular week, I'd be putting him on the Austin Squatty or maybe Anna Kournikova because he loves to gamble on his picks and he'd love to bet on the fights, but he can't because, well, he lives in the wrong part of the West. Honestly, I've seen his predictions, so it's probably saved him a fortune. They can just spend on beers instead. So I guess that makes him a winner. It is, of course, Austin. How's things, mate? I saw that box of IPAs, so hopefully you're feeling up to sitting at the table today.
Yeah, my picks. He burned me a couple times there. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, funny thing. I've enjoyed myself this weekend, and yeah, man. Just do some research before you start making bets. Don't look at mine as an example. But I'm doing good. We're doing good.
And of course, sat on the big blind, our very own Midwest Maverick, probably waiting to jam over the top of my position raise. Is he joking, being a jackass? It's hard to tell, but he's been bluffing his way into just about every chat room on the internet. You'll more likely find him playing with Orichete than cracking an Oreo, but I'm going to have to call him down this time and see what he has. It's time to turn him over. What are you holding this week, Lazy?
Well, Pocket Rockets, I'm just happy to see. I don't know which one it is, but man, we went from a week that looked like there was going to be not a lot to talk about to a night with tons to talk about. So yeah, let's get into this thing, man.
Good. And that just leaves me, your host, Dangermouse. As usual, I've played pretty tight and only gambled on a couple of hands, and we'll see if I manage to spike a set or pull off a hidden straight with some suited connectors. Last thing before we start the show is to invite you to join us by hitting that subscribe button. Let's jack this subscriber pot up to 200. In return, I promise you, we won't talk about that fight. You know the one. Come on, that alone is worth it, isn't it? All right, let's get on to the fights, and we're going to play a little lowball and start with our favourites from the prelims. And we'll hear from Austin first. So which card are you picking from this Omaha hand of a prelims?
I'm gonna just be generic and go with the beginning, the opening card of the night. Who also emerged victorious, Mrs. Ardeline. I believe she also is currently living in the UK, if I'm not mistaken.
When I saw it come up that she was in Birmingham, I was like, shit, I didn't know that. I would have picked her if I'd known she was English. And then she's not English, she just trains in Birmingham. So probably at Leon Edwards' gym, I would imagine.
Yeah, that was the thing, because forgive me, the opponent's name was Dos Santos. Is that correct?
Yeah, Rayani Dos Santos.
Okay, thank you. So the only reason why I'm going to go with this one is because this one set the falsifying stance that tonight was going to be a great night. And the thing is that I still had fun watching the fight. And granted, not a lot of head movement, not a lot of, clean striking. This was just a good old fashioned, fight. Two people standing pretty close to, range of each other and just, throwing haymakers. Not a lot of groundwork, not a lot of, clinching against the fence, but just kind of circling around each other, countering, and then countering the counters, basically hooking each other on a regular basis. And then if one missed, the other one countered, the other one manages to slip and then manages to come back. And then it was like a good little, scrap. Was it the best fight? Absolutely not. But, it was probably one of the better reasons why the night was somewhat salvaged. But it earned fight of the night, and I think that's admirable considering the the slop that we were given majority of the time. So I would say these women definitely helped me engage more when I was trying to catch up with other things around the house. So these ladies definitely set the tone for the night, and unfortunately, the night did not follow. So, hey, shout out to these ladies, and also to Alice Ardeline for getting a win and in a tough, hard, scrap. Not easy to do. She's not the best and skilled, but she pulled it off. Good for her.
Yep, that was cool. Lacey, what was yours?
Well, I'm glad you made Austin go first because I needed a moment to kind of think about this and go over it in my head some. But yeah, there's a couple options here, a couple of choices. I do want to say though, for Austin's choice, I have on pretty good information that both these ladies might have been fighting for their jobs. So Alice Ardeline might have just saved herself from the unemployment line, but not necessarily, because if you know anything about her, she makes the majority of her money in a different way. I'm not going to touch that. I'm not going to go into that. But, she's famous for other reasons.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, she's also big on TikTok. She has this whole shtick she does. You could look into that, but she does other things too for the adults. But yeah, for my choice, I gotta go with probably the most surprising result of the night for me, in a sense, and that's Jordan Levitt beating Kurt Hollabaugh with that nasty anaconda choke. I did think that Levitt was going to win. I felt like he was the more threatening fighter coming into this. Kurt Hollabaugh's kind of always been a 50-50 guy to me, like not somebody that I'm ever going to want to hang my hat on as far as like going for the victory or betting on someone. But I didn't think that Levitt was going to get it done as quickly and as convincingly as he did. And fucking God, man, when he slapped that anaconda onto Kurt, it was just academic from there. And very happy to see him get the W. A lot of people are not big fans of Mr. Levitt, but I am. I think he's a fun character, doesn't take himself too seriously, has a good sense of humor, and was coming into this fight off of like a 1.5 year long layoff where he had last competed against Chase Hooper and lost via submission himself. So to see him bounce back and get a win and a finish, it was good to see. And if you get a chance, check out his post-fight press conference because it was pretty entertaining and hilarious. So I'd say go check that out.
I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, for me, it was the Monkey King, Jordan Levitt. That submission was just so slick. And as you said, once it was on, it was like, nah, this fight is now over. It's only a matter of time. And of course, I believe he got 50K as well, Jordan, for that one. On to the main card to see if we can get 5 streets of value from our return to the Apex. In the first bout, we had at middleweight Zachary Reese defeating Dusko Todorovic via unanimous decision. Back once again with the middleweights, who managed to land 73 strikes during this uninspiring main card opener. Reese thrown 135 and Dusko only threw 109. I hadn't checked, but I think that Dusko won the first round, having about 3 minutes of ground control time, and he was credited with a sub attempt as well. Reese, though, was much busier with his striking in the last 2 rounds. So thoughts on this fight, Lazy?
Horrible, terrible fight. That's my thoughts. This was not a fun fight to watch. Really a fight that I thought coming in would be a bit more exciting because both these dudes aren't the most durable. They don't have the best constitution. Their chins typically don't hold up very well. I thought somebody would likely be going to sleep, but ended up not being the case. And I think that's partly to do with the fact that I don't think neither one of these guys was really fighting like they wanted to win. It was just kind of a sparring session, glorified. Yeah, man, it kind of sucks because Zach Reese had a lot of hype coming in, and then of course suffered the KO loss due to the slam versus Cody Brundage. That's a tarnish and a stain on your record that it's going to be hard to live down no matter what you accomplish going forward in your career, getting fucking KO'd by a slam from Cody Brundage. And then to come out and lay a fucking absolute stinker against Dusko Todorovic, I mean, it doesn't really bode well for him. You might have got the victory, but, going forward and for your booking, it's not looking the best. And Dusko now down to 12-6. I don't know. I don't know if we see him around much longer.
Yep, it's going for all-star record with the 12-6, isn't it? Austin, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, you called it middleweight, and this is not even like the good part of it. This is like this is the bottom of the barrel kind of middleweight. Two guys who have athletic limits to their abilities and are just not really seasoned or capable like fighters yet. And with Todorovic, he's essentially the dude who like went through a murderer's row of like guys who have transferred to now like welterweight or have still middleweight, managed to find life in middleweight still, and he's kind of suffering because of it. I think he came into the promotion like 12-1, if I'm not mistaken. like my dude is like been through the ringer at middleweight, and he's not even surpassed like the upper echelon of that division as of yet. He's still at the bottom, trying to swim for his life, and Zach Reese is not anywhere close to that, to the elite. So it's kind of it sucks because I like Disco, but this is the situation where middleweight becomes a weird division because you have guys who are slightly too big for welterweight, size wise, not so much height, and then you got, they're too small for like heavyweight. I mean, that'd be like asking Dusko going up to light heavyweight would be like asking Robert Whittaker to go up to light heavyweight. What are we doing here? Reese could probably survive there because he's a tall, lanky guy, but still, he probably wouldn't last too long because of the heavy hitters there. I'm just thinking, man, this is why middleweight is not the division, and why welterweight and lightweight and possibly bantamweight and featherweight are always going to be those divisions that we admire more because of the depth of the divisions that usually give us great fights and great fighters. The elite usually have a longer lifespan because they have to be really good in order to be in those divisions. This is kind of like the opposite of that. It's unfortunate because I think both guys are capable, but it is what it is.
Okie dokie. Then next up at women's featherweight, we had Caitlin Vieira defeating Maycee Chasson via unanimous decision. One judge scoring it 30-27, the other two scoring it 29-28. I thought that Chasson might be able to hold Vieira off, and I think she mostly did in round one, but definitely not so much in the next two rounds as Vieira racked up 9 minutes of control time. I'm kind of surprised that Vieira wasn't awarded a 10-8 for round two. She had 4 minutes 47 control time, and Maycee didn't land a single significant strike. So again, the Jack Slack school of betting on women's fights for a draw holds true. Obviously, that rule doesn't apply if Dakota's fighting. So come on, Austin, what do you have to say about this? I guess significant fight. Is it a title shot for Vieira?
I mean, no, because Norma Dumais is next in line, if anything, and even ahead of Vieira possibly is, I would say Amanda. And here's the truth of the matter: this fight was pushed up to 145 pounds, and I'm not naming the perpetrator or the culprit who is usually pushing for this. One of the girls, and it wasn't Vieira, is usually trying to fight more often than not at 145s or at catch weights of 140. Chasson is capable, but she doesn't look like she's physically able to defend takedowns on a regular basis. And again, she's had success against other strikers, but like, look at her fight with Irene Aldana. The minute like that random leg kick or up kick comes from Aldana off of her back and lands on Chasson's midsection, she immediately crumbles. And the only reason why Chasson got a win over God damn it, I can't remember her name for the life of me, but she sliced some girl's face open with an elbow, but was relatively not like running her over beforehand. I mean, she's had a history of where she just kind of falls into victory and then usually kind of slips on a banana peel more often than not on her way to a victory and loses the fight. Vieira is the staple of this division, not because she's the best, but because she's only physically capable of holding her opponents in clinches. Look at the fight she had with Kayla Harrison. It was a long, drawn out fight. Kayla couldn't find a finish, and Kayla had struggles with grappling with her because she's on the larger side of the division and physically capable in the grappling department. Caitlin Vieira is that girl who's going to test you almost like a gatekeeper per se. But I don't even think she was the oldest in this fight. I think Cheson's older than her, if I'm not mistaken. But again, this is where we are with the division until they, bring in new, contenders. We're kind of stuck with what we have. We have something, but you can't really say we have a division at women's bantamweight. You have fighters, and they don't fight often as is anyways. And half the time, a third of those fights are contested above 135, 136 pounds for some reason. Ridiculous.
Lazy.
Oh, the return of the women's featherweight division. Let's fucking go. Yeah, featherweight's better. The division that none of us asked for, that fucking disappeared into oblivion and was gone forever, or so we thought. It's back. Well, honestly, it's not the most surprising because these are two of the bigger women in the bantamweight division. To clarify, and many people have probably seen the tweet by now, Chason was all the way down to 138 pounds the morning of the fight, around like 6 a.m., so just before weigh-ins. It was Vieira that requested this fight be moved up. I've heard a lot of speculation that you're going to see a lot more of these catchweight bouts and these type of weight misses happening and being accepted because of the schedule that the UFC is trying to keep. That's a whole separate issue in and of itself. But nevertheless, we end up getting, a featherweight fight here, and go figure, what do you fucking know? The chick that came in heavy, that couldn't make weight, that refused to make weight, pretty much laid on her opponent for the entire fight and used that weight and that size to her advantage. Can't say I blame her. It was a sound tactic, and it was a move that did work. It got her the victory here. There was activity on the feet, but for the most part, I feel like it was just pretty much Vieira using that size advantage. So I don't want to take away from her here, but does this necessarily count towards your momentum at bantamweight? I'm not so sure. I don't know how they're going to view this going forward. This is kind of just in a sense, a meaningless fight now. But it's a fight that did happen. It's a fight that halts the momentum that Chesson had started to kind of accumulate. Like you mentioned, Austin getting that doctor stoppage that was against Mayra Bueno Silva back last summer. So Bueno Silva being a former title challenger, Chesson kind of had a good thing going here, and which sucks for not only her but also Fortis MMA, because she had kind of become the star pupil of Saif Saud and Fortis. So yeah, just kind of a fight that sort of leaves me with a meh kind of a feeling, just I don't really know how to feel one way or another. Sucks that Chesson had to take this fight against somebody that refused to make weight.
Yeah, I didn't know that she hadn't made weight, to be honest. I might have changed my pick if I had.
I was gonna say, thank you for dead wronging me.
All right, next up at light heavyweight, we had Dustin Jacoby defeating Bruno Lopez by knockout punches, round 1, 1 minute 50. Brutal KO from Jacoby that apparently is not worth a bonus. Pretty short fight. So what's your take on this one, Lazy? Have the UFC done it again, bringing Lopez onto a main card far too soon?
Oh, it's possible. It's possible. But I think that more so, it's a bit of them underestimating where Dustin Jacoby's at in his career. Like the career resurgence that you could say he's on. Just a few fights ago, I was of the mindset that this guy is likely on his way out. Should probably hang him up. His better days were behind him. His glory days, for a pun. He's a guy that's seen a lot of fucking wear and tear. He's been in a lot of different combat scenarios in various combat sports. So he's between the gym, the training rooms, the different bouts that he's been in, and all the stuff that he's been through, I sort of felt like, the tread on the tires was wearing thin. Well, what the fuck do I know? Because you flash forward just a couple fights later, and the guy's on a fucking 2-fight win streak, and he's taking out contenders. He's turning away the youngsters that they're sending in to try to come and take his spot. So to answer your question, I don't know if it was necessarily too soon to move Bruno Lopez up to the main card, but I feel like it was a bit of a lack of foresight on the part of the UFC matchmakers on the Jacoby end, because clearly the guy still got gas in the tank and he's still dangerous. This wasn't a one-punch knockout like he had against Vitor Petrino, where you just catch a guy clean and put him out. This was, an accumulation. This was a snowball rolling downhill where once he had Mr. Lopez hurt, he was just unloading on him, just rights and lefts and rights and lefts, and ultimately one of them caught him and folded him. And the real shame in this is Jacoby not getting a bonus. I feel like he was definitely bonus worthy and deserving of one, especially considering the story from MMA Junkie, where they came out with the UFC Vegas 107 promotional guidelines compliance pay, where Dustin Jacoby topped the card at $16K.
Jesus.
$16K? Are you serious? I don't know, man. That just sounds crazy to me. But yeah, so UFC saved a lot of money last night, and Dustin Jacoby got screwed.
Austin?
Question real quick. Did that compliance pay also include what the Barber and what the headliners had?
I think that was probably excluding them.
Okay, that makes sense.
But still, I mean, 16,000.
Yeah, welcome to the UFC.
That's probably like your third fight.
Yeah. Yeah, this is why we watch the sport, for this type of bullshit. To Lazy's point, again, I don't think it was too much too soon for these guys, or I should say the man who was knocked out. Justin Jacoby is still good, man. He was on like a 7-fight win streak before he went on this skid that he was on prior to getting 2 wins in a row now. So he's capable. He was in Glory Kickboxing, fighting Poton in, small arenas. He knows what it's like. He had a chance early on in his career to be in the UFC, washed out. And this is him, finding out what veteran savvy is. He's been there, done that, and he's now had a little bit of momentum now. So this is the type of thing where this is a byproduct of the division, where just because you're older doesn't mean you can't actually succeed in this division. I mean, hell, Poton was on the older side. Glover Teixeira was on the older side. Jan Blachowicz was on the older side. Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Tito, Vitor, all these fucking guys. like this is the division where age doesn't necessarily catch up to you as quick as it does in the smaller divisions. And it doesn't matter if you have a young gun who's probably only had 2 fights in the division, or if you had a guy who's had 30 and he's been around for a while, right? This is just a byproduct of the division. You can never underestimate veterans, because it doesn't matter if a veteran's coming off of 2 knockout losses. In this division, it only takes 1 strike. And I'm going to be honest, he kind of Jacoby reminded me of old school Chuck Liddell out there, the Iceman, just fucking wanging and banging against the cage and saying, "Fuck you, young buck, you're not getting me today." You look good, man. And that's what you want to see in this division. You want to see vets push back the young guys, and the young guys come up there and occasionally challenge the vets. Like, you need overturn in this division. Right now, they're kind of in a weird, perfect mix of young and old. And that's the way, light heavyweight has always been, but good for Jacoby. I don't think it was too soon for the other guy. It's just unfortunate he had Jacoby against him, I think, would be the thing.
Okay.
Ooh, one last thing on this fight before we move on. I don't know the fucking first thing about golf. I'm not a golf fan at all. But Dustin Jacoby said in his post-fight interview backstage with Megan O'Leary, apparently he says he's the best golfer in the UFC. They showed some clips up from his Instagram. The guy looks pretty fucking good. He's campaigning to get on some sort of a yearly celebrity golfing tournament that the UFC like puts guys into with the PGA or some shit like that. I wanted to bring this up because Mike Heck or Jed Meshew, if you happen to be listening to this, get Dustin Jacoby on the next fucking what's the thing called?
Swing rounds.
Swing rounds. Yeah, get Dustin Jacoby on the next swing rounds, bro. What the fuck?
Yeah, sure.
Let's go.
Yeah. I saw the Derek Lewis one. That was pretty funny. Derek cheating and
yeah, that was a good one.
when he took the buggy looking for his ball for about 15 minutes or something.
I asked Mike Heck if Derek Lewis took a smoke break during their golf excursion, and he said surprisingly no.
Yeah. All right then. On to what became the co-main event of the evening at welterweight. Ramesh Braham defeating Billy Ray Goff by technical submission guillotine choke at 3 minutes 16 of round 1. And this was a fun one as long as it lasted. Goff may have been the biggest favourite of the night at minus 395, but Ramirez gave him very little respect, pouncing on a takedown, ducking under one of the very few strikes thrown in the fight. It really looked as if Ramirez was going to get it done even earlier, threatening the rear naked choke at the start of the round. But Goff did manage to regain some position, and he was controlling Ramirez up against the cage until all of a sudden he ducked a little bit too low and allowed Brahimaj to grab his neck. And although he avoided the ninja choke, Ramirez just adjusted and ended up finishing the fight with the standing guillotine. And he dropped the unconscious Goff like a bag of spuds and picked up a 50k bonus as he did. You're our lover of grappling, Austin. So what do you think of this fight?
Well, my first thought was when I started wrestling and I trained a little bit of jiu-jitsu when I had the chance to, they teach it both very different disciplines, but both basically have at least a thing in common where head position is important. And his head position was not in the best spot. That was my first indication that something was going to go terribly wrong for him. And I had picked Goff because I was like, all right, well, the wrestler who's bigger usually wins in the battle of grapplers. And the unfortunate part of this was that Goff was, I think, not coming off of a layoff, but he was coming off of, I think, having been removed, if I'm correct on that, Lazy. Dead wrong me if I'm not. But he was taking this fight on short notice. Is that correct?
It was a swapping of opponents because it was initially intended to be Billy Ray Goff versus Seokhyun Ko, but Ko had visa issues. And Brahimaj was supposed to face Oban Elliott, but Oban Elliott had visa issues. So they basically swapped opponents.
Thank you. That helps me. Yep. So he kind of Ramesh Brahimaj he's not the biggest welterweight in there, and he's very capable though, as you can see from his wrestling ability, because he immediately, like you said, Mouse goes in, immediately grabs that double, tries to take him down, and then once he loses the position, he adjusts his submission attempts. Because he was like right on top of his back, fishing for a rear naked. Once he couldn't get that and the position became against the fence, he immediately started looking for a guillotine or some kind of a front choke. And Goff couldn't really figure out how to get out of it because he got put in 5 different positions where he was adjusting, Brahimaj was adjusting the front choke. And then by the time he was unconscious, this is a great play by Brahimaj because he immediately tosses him because he recognizes that he's out. If you haven't seen it, there's a World Series of Fighting fight. I forget the name of one of the fighters, but the other one was John Finch. And John Finch goes unconscious and he is let loose and immediately falls back. His head hits the canvas because the ref, I believe it was Steve Mazzagatti, could not identify if he was unconscious or not. This was the same situation. Yeah, exactly. But this was a similar situation, except it wasn't on the ref because the ref couldn't see because it was against the cage. I don't even think he even got a chance to tap, honestly, because the camera angle couldn't really show it. I mean, he immediately recognizes that he's unconscious and then lets him go. Like, there was maybe a split second of him fighting it, and then it was over. Like, that and the message he gave afterwards, dude, I'm a fan of that guy. I'm going to keep cheering for him. That was awesome. Good for him.
Okay. Enthusiastic. Lazy?
Billy Ray Goff is dead. Billy Ray Goff is fucking dead. That's what I said to myself. Yeah, the way he flopped back on that mat, dude. It was John Jones versus Machida. It was reminiscent of so many fucking front chokes where the dude is completely out and just flops over like a dead fish, like a fucking sack of potatoes, like a bag of concrete, whatever you want to call it. And shout out to the UFC, I suppose, for ripping off the PFL and debuting the referee cam, because it really came in handy for this fight. We got some very graphic firsthand, POV footage from the referee cam on this one. Some good still shots that came out of this of Billy Ray Goff just completely zonked out on the mat. Big props to Brahimaj. I got to give him major credit, but I got to kick my own self in the ass because I was on him all week long because I had watched his media day interviews throughout the week, and the guy's got a fucking great personality, kind of like you were saying, Austin, in post fight. He's just well spoken. He's good at kind of making you relate to him and getting you on his side, and just doesn't come across arrogant or assholey in any way. Doesn't have any of the things that would typically make a lot of people standoffish from liking certain fighters on personal levels. Just seems like a decent, salt of the earth kind of guy. And also trains with Valley Flow Striking out of Chicago, Bilal Muhammad's gym, the gym of many great fighters. So I was on him all week long, and then at the last second, changed my fucking pick on the Discord to Billy Ray Goff because so many fucking people were high on him, and the fucking odds makers had him a fucking great, a very high favorite. And I believe Brahimaj may have been the biggest underdog on the card, actually. But yeah,
It was minus 395 for Goff.
Yeah. I want to say Brahimaj was at least plus 300 or something like that.
Yeah, plus 310.
Yeah, there you go. If not higher at certain points of the week. But anyhow, I was on him throughout the week because he does have the more well-rounded game. He certainly is the better grappler. Billy Ray Goff, more of a stand-up fighter, but known for having a great chin. And I think that what gave a lot of people hesitation on picking Brahimaj in this fight was, I can't remember who he fought in his previous fight. The Mickey Gall fight, where he I believe he did end up beating Mickey Gall, but he kind of chose to stand and bang with Mickey Gall. And I think that gave a lot of people trepidations about picking him into this fight coming into it with Billy Ray Goff, because Billy Ray Goff is a much more capable stand-up fighter than a Mickey Gall. So, but anyway, a huge win for Ramiz. And yeah, probably the most single impressive moment of the night for me.
Yeah, certainly was. All right, next up we had what should have been the co-main, but actually became the main. The lightweight bout between Matthias Gamrot, who defeated Ludovic Klein via unanimous decision, 30-27. Dominant performance from Gamrot, out-striking and out-grappling Klein across all 3 rounds. As this was one of the only few fights I picked correctly last night, I was pretty happy with this one. But I know a man who reacted as if his aces had just been cracked, and that's our pal Lazy, who did pick Klein, and I believe he's now dead to you. So let's hear it.
Yes, Ludovic Klein, you are dead to me, sir. Another one where I had the wrong idea coming in. The 95% takedown defense rating for Ludovic Klein threw me off. Everyone knows that Gamrot's a very capable wrestler, likely one of the best wrestlers pound for pound across the UFC. But I thought that Klein was going to be a step quicker. I thought he was going to be a step ahead in reaction time. And I thought that combined with the defense of the takedowns that he's shown in the past was going to be enough for him to at least stuff the majority of Gamrot's takedowns and tag him up on the feet. Gamrot, kind of notoriously one of the guys that marks up very easily. If you can put the hands on him, if you can contact the man's face, he's going to show the damage. He's going to show the wear and tear. Sometimes the judges value that more strongly than others. But yeah, I thought that his reaction time was going to look better, and I thought that he was going to do more of what he did in the first round, where, if you recall, I'm pretty sure he kind of stumbled Gamrot a little bit and maybe semi-dropped him with a shot. It could have even been a jab, but it looked like a straight punch. I'm recalling this off the top of my head, but yeah, just Gamrot kind of out-gamered him. He lived up to his name. He was the gamer in this matchup. Most people were of the mind that this is what was going to happen. And yeah, he came out there and just kind of smothered Ludovic. Ludovic couldn't find any kind of answer to get up off the bottom. A lot of times was just closing his guard, which seemed like a terrible move, a purely defensive move. You're not trying to get up at that point, and you're just kind of surrendering. And yeah, that was more or less what it was. Several rounds of Mateusz Gamrot pounding on Ludovic Klein.
Austin, your thoughts on this one, and what's next for Gamrot?
Well, this has been a tale that has been continuing since I would say, the current elite of the lightweight division have been pretty much like put in power in this weight class, because when he was at KSW, you kind of knew he was capable. And honestly, this whole division is just, as Luke said, where the elder statesmen of this division have prevented a majority of the new guys from being able to actually make their way into contendership, which is something to say, because usually a healthy division has a decent amount of turnover. This is the one division where the turnover has not really taken place. We just seen it with welterweight. We are now starting to see it with bantamweight as well as featherweight. There's pushes with contenders. Middleweight has had its share of new contenders actually shoot up the division and actually take over a majority of the rankings. Light heavyweight has been constantly turning over because it's light heavyweight. You don't need much. Heavyweight is a dead division, more or less. And women's divisions have been on this uneasy turnover of names, people being released, being brought in and not living up to the hype. This is the one division where the names at the top have not really changed for the past 5 years. And there's a reason for that. It's because they're really, really good. I mean, this is not to say that Klein is not a good fighter. He was actually on a win streak, right? And he looked very, very good. I mean, that's Lazy would tell. But no, that's why he picked him. He looked like he was capable. I mean, he's running through these guys, finishing people, just looking like a goddamn hammer, aside from his first fight at a lower division. And this is why you have Gamrot in this division, because he's a good gatekeeper. Gamrot is that dude that's going to make sure whoever is there deserves to be there. And unfortunately, Ludovic Klein was not there yet. Doesn't mean he won't ever be there, but slow the brakes on the young guy. And as far as for Gamrot, honestly, he might just have to take a fight with Paddy Pimblett. That's what I would think, and because that's what you're supposed to do in this type of situation. The old guys need to defend their positions and reasoning as to why they're there. I mean, he came off a fight of the night contender, or I believe of the year, maybe, with Dan Hooker, right? Well, he now defended his position. He might have to defend his position again, because it's not like any of the guys at the top are going to want to take him. And I think he's actually teammates with Dustin Poirier and I think someone else as well. And, at certain points, these guys might just have to rematch each other. I mean, Yeah, this is a really tough division to kind of get ahead in, but you might have to fight it back again, and might not be in his favor this time.
Yeah.
Let me add this in real quick, little tidbit. There's a Paris Fight Night card coming up later this year, and there's only really 2 fights they're looking at that make sense to top that bill. One of them is Gamrot versus BSD, and the other one we're not even going to mention because I don't want to put it in the atmosphere. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if it's Gamrot versus BSD in Paris in a couple of months.
Yeah, I'd be happy with
Mystic Lazy over here.
Just say.
Oh. That just leaves us with a main event that never happened. MMA Guru absolutely loved this. Said it was the best women's main event ever. So we had Erin Blanchfield all warmed up, gloved up, ready to make the walk to the cage, only to hear from Hunter Campbell that the fight was off. Maycee Barber suffering some kind of seizure and being unable to fight. She'd also missed weight, quite possibly because of her new bolt-ons. I don't think anyone here objects if a fighter wants to get a boob job, but for God's sake, wait until you retire. So now I think Lazy's bursting to get something off his chest about this, so let's hear it, man.
Where do you even start to fucking unpack this? Like, I don't even know. Where do you dive in at? There's so many angles we could take this. Well, I guess first you got to start with the fact that it's not Mystic Lazy. It's Mystic Blanchfield. It's Mystic Erin Blanchfield, because did she call it or did she fucking call it? I mean, she was saying it for fucking weeks leading up to this. Maycee Barber was not going to make this fight. She was not going to make that final walk to the cage. And I wouldn't be surprised if up until that last second when Hunter Campbell came in there to break this news to them, she still wasn't sure if this fight was going to go down. And if you see the video, there is video out there of her backstage after finding out this news. She's smiling and she's laughing. And that tells me that this was probably anticipated on her end and probably on her team's end. So there's that aspect of it. There's also all the shit that Maycee Barber talked building up to this fight, and in fact talked for years about Erin Blanchfield. This has been an ongoing beef that is this isn't new. This isn't new news. This has been something that's been brewing. So she talks all this shit for years. She fails to make weight, and then she experiences a health problem that we can speculate on what that health problem was, but that's probably not the most respectful thing to do. But nevertheless, she experiences a health problem that causes the latest fight cancellation in the 32-year history of the UFC. The main event of an already lackluster card gets canceled at the very last possible second. Does this go down as the most disappointing event in UFC history? Quite possibly. You could debate that. That could be an argument. That could be a later show. I think that the real story of all this is kind of how shitty this is for Erin Blanchfield to be a fighter that went through weeks and weeks of a training camp, all this build-up, all this preparation, dieting, cutting weight, paying for your team to travel, all the different shit she went through, the emotions, the roller coaster, the building of the adrenaline, all to have it come to a screeching halt at the very last possible moment. That's fucking shitty for her. It does suck for Barber too. You know, hopefully whatever's going on with her health-wise, she does recover from it. But yeah, really, ultimately, I feel the worst for Blanchfield. What they do with her going forward is going to be very interesting. It is fortunate to say that she will be given her show and win bonus, so she will be getting her full pay. I'd not be surprised if they're cutting her some extra cash also behind the scenes. For Maycee Barber, no pun intended, the future looks very uncertain. Well, I think we're going to get into this a bit more afterwards, so I'm not going to go too much longer here, but what happens with her going forward remains to be seen. And I think that, it's very bleak, the future for Maycee Barber. So definitely a tale of two different endings, two different outcomes, and two different possibilities of what lies ahead for two young women who were thought to be kind of the backbones of this division going forward, and now that's in jeopardy. So yeah, man, lots to say, and I don't know, I should just probably cut myself off there.
Austin, I would say about this.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I could say, and I think Lazy is right. We will probably go into depth a little bit more on this at a later time. But the first thing that came to mind was when Stefan Struve was not able to fight, and I believe it was in a similar, I think it was at the Apex, if I'm not mistaken, where we figured out Stefan Struve had a heart condition, and he wasn't able to make the fight. He like fainted in the back or something like that. And this isn't the first time that this has happened. This is just the first time where it's been a main event. And it was literally, like Lazy said, the latest possible time. And if we are to speculate, we don't know. We're not doctors. I mean, I did speak to a medical professional. I'm not gonna name names, but he said he was also very concerned with what he was hearing and following up with. And the thing is that this is unfortunate. You don't ever want to hear about this. You don't ever want to see this in the sport. You don't want to speculate to the point to where you're coming out with misinformation. But the truth of the matter is that one of these girls was prepared, the other one was not. And we can again go into detail on what it is. Thankfully we did find out that Barber is okay for the time being, but as far as her opponent, she like you said, Lacey, she had a whole training camp. They both trained, they both were ready, they both were there, and one of them ended up just not being able to go. And it sucks. It sucks for the division because now there's not clarity at the top. And it sucks for one fighter because now we may have to put her career on hold depending on what we find out. And the other one is pretty much left in limbo without a fight against another top 5, top 10 opponent, which could solidify her position as a contender ready for the title. And this Erin Blanchfield is stuck in a position where it's a no-win. Yeah, she got paid, but there's no clarity to her, her ranking. She didn't defend her ranking. She didn't have a fight. And that's the worst part about it, is that there's not a clear-cut decision of, okay, Barber was that girl. Barber is now moving up the division as far as the next contender is concerned. Erin Blanchfield is in the same spot that she was before this fight. And that's still in a spot where she's not sure if she's the next contender or, she's got maybe one or two more to go after this. It's unfortunate again. And the way it was laid out to us on the broadcast was probably not the best. And maybe Maycee, Barber, there's a lot of things we could speculate. It just sucks. It sucks is what it is. And I'm not going to hold it against Maycee Barber. It's, again, something happened. We don't know the details of it, but I just hope that she's okay. She that's it. It's not unprecedented that this happens, but it again, it just sucks. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. Get well, Maycee, in all seriousness. And
two last little details on this, if I could.
Sure.
Firstly, and I'll point to a tweet from Eric McGracken here, who I guess is an MMA media journalist or combat sports media journalist. Nevada law, guys, requires that ticket refunds be offered if a main event falls apart. Ooh. So all those people, those many people that were in attendance last night are now all good, if they want one, can get a refund for their ticket. But as the man said in his tweet, when you put on fights in a warehouse in front of a dozen people, I guess that's no biggie.
Very true.
And then also, the second thing and last thing I want to say on this, this sets up almost perfectly, and I've been hearing some chatter, possible Erin Blanchfield versus Natalia Silva, which would be the first ever JBR fight where one team has 2 fighters in the same fight. So
Oh,
the JBR Fantasy Draft Rules Commission may have to convene on how we score this fight for Super Dave going forward if it happens.
yeah.
Unless he just gets double points. I don't know. I guess it counts.
Well, you'd score a win and a loss, wouldn't you? So
Yeah.
No, you still the winner gets a majority, gets their points plus the bonus points for winning, right? And then they'd still get 5 points for the loser,
Competing loser.
regardless.
Yeah, I guess that counts. Yeah, well, fuck it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'd already thought about it because I have the possibility of Islam meeting ShavCAT later in the year, which would be sick. All right, I guess it's time to rate that card. And Lazy, you can go first because I said so.
Well, fine if you insist. God, man, what are you supposed to rate this card? How do you rate a card that? I don't want to steal the line. I think you're going to mention it, Dangermouse, if you haven't already. That tweet from that fellow.
Yeah, I'm going to mention it later.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, how do you rate a card like this? How do you even put a rating on this? All the circumstances surrounding it, the way that it went down. It's almost like trying to rate an entirely different card than you had anticipated coming in. Because so many fights switching up and fights falling off and all the different shakeups. A couple of fun finishes. Next to no name value whatsoever. It was in the apex. I guess just for the novelty value, the fact that we'll likely never see anything like this again. I hope. Yeah. So I guess for novelty value alone, I got to give it at least a 5. I'll give it a 5.
Okie dokie. Might as well let our eternal optimist loose next.
I'm gonna just give this a 4.
Wow.
And again, it's not because the fights weren't good. It's just this is the first time where I felt like a card was just kind of like slapped together as best as it could without real any like effort into keeping it alive. That's the first time I've ever felt this. And this is an Apex card. usually there's at least some effort. This was like the first time. And again, it's not on the main event. That's unfortunate. That medical issues happen all the time. This is the first time where an actual fight card was strung together to the point to where by the time we got to the main event, it was almost as if everybody was expecting something bad to happen. And that's kind of like where I'm like, yeah, that should never be the case. That should never be the case with the UFC, you know? And again, it sucks, but I have to give it a 4. That's it.
I think that's your lowest ever score for Austin there. Well,
This is true.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. As for me, I loved a description of this card that I heard on the Jack Slack show. And I know Lazy saw a tweet that said more or less the same. In fact, exactly the same thing.
9-fight card. Oh, someone had a really good breakdown of this. Hold on. The boy Valdeoir said, 11 fights scheduled, 9 fights happened, 3 weight misses, 2 medical issues cancelling fights outside the cage, main event cancelled, 3 finishes, 1 KO. One of the more violent sustained fights was one with a women's flyweight who is as much an influencer as a fighter. Crazy. Just unbelievably bad.
But as I'd already clipped the Jack Slack, I get to mention it. As for the score, well, I have a confession to make. You may have noticed that I've been very brief talking about these fights, and that's because, well, I've only seen 2 of the fights from the 5 fights from the main card. I did see the prelims, so I can score those. And although I haven't seen the main event, I do know how Gamrot fights, and those fight stats tell a story. Lazy was talking about how he could possibly score this. Well, there were 9 fights on this card, and I think I picked 4 right. So I'm going to give it 4.9.
Makes sense.
Anything else we want to talk about?
Oh, We probably should mention UFC Noche or Noche UFC. It's moving. It is moving. No longer taking place in Guadalajara, Mexico, at Arena Guadalajara, as predicted by yours truly and several others around the space. The arena's not going to be ready. They had canceled events all the way up until September 7th, and I believe Noche was slated to take place on the 13th. So there was talk for the last week or two that they were going to move this thing, and sure enough, they fucking did. Just yesterday, I believe it was, boxing officials canvassed by Boxing Scene. This was on Friday. Feel the door was open for the UFC to shift what was UFC 320 to a US venue, perhaps even as a non-pay-per-view event. Bingo, that's exactly what fucking happened. They shifted to the US. It's now in San Antonio, and it is no longer UFC 320. It is not even a numbered event. It's not a pay-per-view. It is a fight night. And that opens up a couple of other possibilities, one of which is Dana White now sliding back in with TKO Boxing to help promote the Canelo Alvarez Terrence Crawford fight, along with Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh season, which was in jeopardy. That's probably back on the table now. And then also, this opens up the pay-per-view slot for the UFC calendar for the month of September. I believe they're also supposed to be visiting Australia in September. So don't be surprised if that Perth event now becomes a pay-per-view. And that means a pay-per-view is going to need a headliner. Who do you have headline on Australian pay-per-view? I wonder.
Anything, Austin, you want to talk about?
Doom is awesome, and I've been playing it. Very basic game. I know it's not MMA related, but I'm also super excited for the updates to Space Marine 2, as well as Dark Tide, Warhammer adjacent games, as well as the remastered version of Space Marine 1, and available on June 10th. Really excited about those. Sorry, this isn't MMA related, but this is the only way I can contribute.
I think Austin's trying to turn us into the MMA arcade. We'll have Rob Whittaker coming after us. Okay, then that's it for this week. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. We will be back Tuesday with the Sunday Night Scuffle, and next week, Lazy takes the helm for our UFC 316 show, where Merab Devashwili defends his bantamweight strap against Sean O'Malley. Lots of draft implications on the card. I've been your host, Dangermouse. They've been No Special and Lazybed. It's good night from me and good afternoon from them, and we are out of here, you bleeders.
Peace.
Later. I'm fucking dead.